Okay, so first off, I'm going to clarify what I mean when I say Star Wars Legends. So Star Wars Legends is basically what was canon before Disney took over the franchise and made their own canon. And I'm not like one of those people who thinks that it's worse on either side of the thing. I think they both get their merits. I'm just sort of clarifying what is Legends. So Legends basically includes everything that was made before like 2014 or so. And that does include the Clone Wars series from Cartoon Network, which a lot of people say is actually canon. It is canon, but it's also Legends. And I know it contradicts a lot of stuff that happens during the Clone Wars in Legends, but given the fact that I like it and George Lucas made it, I'm going to consider that full Legends canon. So we probably won't get there anyway, because it's probably gonna pass out or something. Doesn't matter. Who cares? The important thing to know is the Force. That's like the main driving factor behind the entire Star Wars galaxy. And so the Force, it's like this energy that is in everything in the galaxy. Basically, you name it, like plants, animals, rocks. They've all got the Force, and if you have the ability to influence the Force, then you can, mess around with anything that exists. So there's these little microscopic entities called midichlorians, and midichlorians are basically like the channel through which people can access the Force. So normally people wouldn't be able to do anything with the Force, but these midichlorians, through some sciencey magic, are able to make people mess with the Force, pick up rocks with their mind and do mind tricks and stuff. That's the basic magic system of the universe, and that's the driving force between all the conflicts, because the Force has two sides, so we think. It's got the light side, which is all the good stuff, and the dark side. So that's the main conflict, and everything that happens in the universe stems from that main conflict. So it all starts like way back hundreds of thousands or some odd years before anything's going on. There's these like pyramid things that show up on random planets. They're called the Thoyor, and they just sort of show up, sit there for a while, for like, tens of thousands of years or something. People build like religions around them. They don't know what they are, but they go to study them, and they get super like spiritual and stuff. At some point they reach a level of spirituality where the Thoyor activate, and they open up, and people can go inside, and they ride them all the way to this planet called Tython. And Tython is like a weird Force planet. Like there's a lot of planets like this that exist in the Star Wars universe that are just like channels or conduits of the Force. So the Tython is one of them. It's got like two moons, and they both represent one side of the Force. So there's like a dark side moon, there's a light side moon, and a bunch of people from like all kinds of different species and planets and stuff show up all together on this planet. They're all like sort of scientists and monks and things. And so they start getting along and studying the Force. And that's the status quo for like, I don't know, let's say like 20,000 years or something. Around 50,000 years, give or take, a couple thousand, before Star Wars Episode 4, which is kind of where all the timeline extends out of. It's all based on like how many years this was before Star Wars 4 and how many years it is after Star Wars 4. Star Wars 4 is the 0 point. So if ever I'm giving you a date and you see like BBY, that's before the Battle of Yavin, which is like the big thing at the end of Star Wars 4 where they blow up the Death Star. So this is around 50,000 BBY. And the people who came in the Thoyor things are now, they've established like this order, this civilization that's all dedicated to studying the Force, just hanging around doing monk things. They're called the Jedi. That's J apostrophe Dai. So they're not the Jedi. This isn't where the Jedi start quite yet. But they're this, this civilization hanging out, just being peaceful generally. There's some bad ones. There's some ones that go a little bit dark. And when you go a little bit dark, they ship you off to the dark side moon to think about what you've done for as long as it needs to be. And I don't know, that can be like the rest of your life. Maybe. So yeah, so they're hanging out there doing their own thing. All of a sudden, these like crazy aliens arrive, and I've got to describe these aliens. These are the Rakata, and the Rakata look like hammerhead sharks, kind of, with like big sharp teeth, and they're like really big and evil people. Are like one of the earliest civilizations to exist in the galaxy, and they very quickly like took over the entire galaxy. They call it the Infinite Empire. They're like the big boys doing the bad shit, and they want to conquer everyone. They also like don't really have the Force. For some reason, they're cut off from the Force, so they have these like guys that they kidnap from other worlds. It's called Force sensitive when you can handle the Force. So they kidnap all these Force sensitive people, and they turn them into like their Force hounds or whatever, who can go out and do their dark duties for them. Contingent of Rakata show up on Tython. Somehow they found it. The people on Tython are like all peaceful, like, hey, what's going on? And the Rakata start going, it gets pretty bad, pretty dicey. They start fighting each other. They have to bring back the people from the dark side moon, and then that makes everyone like fall deeper into the dark side. The Jedi sort of shatter, and they stop being their cool, peaceful selves. There's a whole Force war, which I don't think really got fully shown in the comics. This is from a comic, so we don't really know exactly what happened there. But by the end of it, the Jedi are no longer a thing, and they reformulated, or at least they're starting to reformulate into this group called the Jedi. That's the one you know. Those are the guys that you're thinking about, and they are a different group of crazy Force-sensitive monk people. So that's the Jedi. The dark side people sort of go off, do their own thing. At one point, I think I'm getting ahead of myself. Forget I just said that. Forget I started that sentence. I'm getting a little dizzy. The Jedi are a thing pretty much from now until the movies. At some point after this, it's around 27,000 years BBY, the Republic starts. And it starts out mostly as like worlds toward the center of the galaxy, the core region, like Coruscant and Alderaan. The places that you've probably heard of if you know anything about Star Wars. So they form into the Republic, the Galactic Republic, which is just a big, giant bureaucracy that governs the entire galaxy, and they do, their own thing. So, oh god. So the Republic's a thing. The Jedi are kind of like an arm of the Republic. They're like the peacekeepers, sort of, and this is kind of the role that they're going to have up until the movies, basically. The Republic handles like the big overarching bureaucracy stuff, but if like there's someone who needs, need to pacify an uprising that's happening on a planet or something, they just send the Jedi out to do the dirty work. Because the Jedi are generally cool people, but they have no scruples about being the police wing of a massive galaxy-wide empire. So this is the status quo for a while. At some point, I'm not sure exactly what it is. It's like a dozen or so millennia before Star Wars 4. There's like a schism among the Jedi. I don't know the exact reason. I think that just some people just want to like research things, and they want to just be chill and do research. They don't want to be the police arm of the Galactic Empire. And the Jedi don't like this. Like, hey, you can't. You have to keep doing cop stuff with us. So these guys break off. They call themselves the Legions of Latau because they went to the planet Latau. That's kind of their headquarters. And the Jedi get pissed at this, so they go in and fucking kill everyone. They kill all the Legions of Latau. Only a few of them survive. There's like one lady who like cryogenically freezes herself, so she doesn't show up again until like after the whole Star Wars saga. So that's called the First Great Schism. And it gets the Jedi all paranoid and stuff, so they start making like laws about here's what you have to do to be a Jedi. These lines of study are off limits, and that's cool for them for a while, until about, there's a squirrel running over me, so about like 9,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, you get the Second Great Schism. This is the bad one, the big bad one, because you got some people who want to start studying like the darker side. You want to study the dark side, that's like one of the things. You can't do the dark side, because the dark side is the thing that fucked up the Jedi originally. And while it wasn't the thing that caused the Latau people to split off, it's known as this force of corruption. It's like very tempting to give into the dark side and do dark side things. So that's what these Dark Jedi start doing. They start practicing this. The Jedi are like, no, you can't do that. We're gonna have to kick you out like we did the Latau people. But this time it's like half the Jedi are gone, because like half the Jedi were real into this dark side stuff. So they're gone. And now instead of like one big massacre like happened the first time, you get like 100 years of just constant fighting. And this is like the Republic's status quo now, is that the Jedi and the Dark Jedi are just beating the shit out of each other wherever they go. Eventually, the Jedi come out on top. There's like one big climactic final battle, and only 12 of the Dark Jedi survive. 12? I think it's 12. Only 12 of them survive. And they like zoom off to the outer edges of the universe. But not really. The thing about the Star Wars unknown regions and stuff is that like it's not actually that far from the known regions, these places. It's just that like they travel by like hyperspace, which is just jumping from place to place. And in order to do hyperspace, you have to calculate routes, which are like straight lines and don't go through any dangerous terrain. You know, like when Han Solo was like, I can make the Kessel Run in just 12 parsecs or whatever. It's a measure of distance, not speed, because he figured out a way to get through that thing in the shortest possible way by passing as few obstacles as possible, and he did it in 12 parsecs. Yeah. So anyway, that's planets are like mysterious because they're surrounded by dangerous terrain, and it's like impossible to actually navigate your way into there. The Dark Jedi, who escaped from the 100-year war thing, is it 100? Yeah, 100. Or is it 1,000? I don't remember. I'm not operating at 100% capacity at this point. The Dark Jedi zoom off into the hyperspace lanes all willy-nilly, not caring about whether they crash into asteroids and stuff, because I bet they have the Force guiding them or whatever. They show up on this place called Korriban, which is the home of the Sith. And the Sith are like a red-skinned race that's kind of just living on this isolated planet. They got a couple planets. They got like an isolated system. And they're very like pseudo-Egyptian in culture, but they're also like really militaristic. They value strength and the ability to fucking murder each other. They're big into that stuff. Basically, they're a might makes right kind of culture. And the Dark Jedi are really into might, you know? That's what they're all about. They're doing the dark side stuff so that they can be mighty and kill a bunch of people. The Dark Jedi show up. They very quickly take over the Sith. They become... I'll give some names. Screw it. I'll give some names. Ajunta Pal is like the first one, like the big one that you should know. Like if anyone ever asks you a pop quiz, like who's the first Sith Lord, it's that guy, Ajunta Pal. That's a name for you. Oh, yeah. So Ajunta Pal and his boys, they take over the Sith. They become the Dark Lords of the Sith, and that's where they hang out in these isolated part of the galaxy for the next like 2,000 some odd years. The Sith culture becomes this sort of caste system where at the bottom you have like the natural born red-skinned Sith, and then at the top you have like the Dark Jedi, the descendants of them, who like they intermingled with the red-skinned Sith. So a lot of them are like hybridized. If you're a Force user, you're basically dominating everyone else there. By around 5,000 years, 6,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, they've established their... No, it is 5,000. Who cares? 5,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, they've established their empire there for a long time. They're doing their Sith things. There's this dude called Naga Sadow, who's like one of the high-ranking members of the Sith, and he wants to make a play for power because the Dark Lord, who's like the big leader, just died. And Naga Sadow is part of the power struggle to see who's going to succeed him. And it just so happens that a couple of intrepid explorers from the Republic just ended up on Korriban. They just were messing around with their hyperspace lanes, and they ended up there. And Naga Sadow finds them immediately, grabs them up. He's like, okay, you're my thing now. I'm going to use you as leverage to start a war with the Republic and then put myself on top. And it's unclear to me how much at this point the Sith know about the Republic, like if that's faded from memory. Either way, they know about him now, and they start off this thing called the Great Hyperspace War. The Great Hyperspace War is actually not, at least as far as we see it, does not seem that big. It doesn't last very long. I think it's just a really short, a really destructive thing. Naga Sadow is basically at the head of it. He takes over the Sith. He leads them to just beat the shit out of each other. But then, sorry about the, it was like, there might be a police chase in the background, I don't know. So Naga Sadow tries to take on one of the explorers who he captured at the beginning as like his new apprentice. And eventually that guy's conscience overcomes him, or whatever. And he betrays Naga Sadow. Naga Sadow dies. Blech. His spirit gets like entombed on this planet called Yavin 4, which is an important planet. Remember that name. I don't think I can do this much longer, if I'm being honest, but I'll try to rush a bit. So yeah, Naga Sadow dead. The Sith Empire is basically destroyed, but it gets taken over by this guy called Vitiate. I don't think he's Darth Vitiate. I think he's just Vitiate. His original name is like Tenebrae or something. And he's like, okay, we're not doing that big power play thing anymore. We're going to take this underground. We're just going to hang out on a few planets, build up our strength for like 1,000 some odd years. And then once we're ready, because now we know what we're up against. So once we're ready, we just take the fight back to the Republic. The Republic, for their part, thinks that they've done all right. They clean up their mess a little bit, which involves, massacring multiple Sith and stuff. So their hands are not clean, but they think they've done a good job. This is all sealed up, and so they get to hang out for the next 1,000 years. In the middle of those 1,000 years, there's this dude called Freedon Nad. Freedon Nad is a Jedi who likes the dark side, as many of them tend to do. So he goes off on his own, studies the dark side. He finds Naga Sadow's ghostly presence. I think it's a ghost. Either he finds either a ghost or like they have these things called holocrons, which are like little pyramid-shaped doodads that like show holograms of like the knowledge of the different Sith lords. The Jedi have them too, but the Sith like them a lot, and it's very very important to Sith lore. Freedon Nad finds this stuff, so he's able to transfer that knowledge to the next generation. He builds like this empire on this planet called Onderon, which is basically, and they do this really low key. It's basically built on the Sith. So the whole family that descends from Freedon Nad is like basically Sith worshippers. It's 4,000 or so years before the Battle of Yavin, before Star Wars 4, and this dude called Ulic Qel-Droma is like a young Jedi. He's a Jedi Knight. He's still in training. It's unclear exactly if the process of training Jedi is the same as it is in the movie era, because he's a Jedi Knight. He's not said he's like a Padawan or anything. He's a Jedi Knight. He works with his master Arkajeth, and a bunch of other people, and they go to Onderon to see what's up. And it's supposed to be just like, oh, there's some rebels on the moon of Onderon who like show up with their crazy beast warrior things, but they go there and they find out, oh shit, this whole civilization is like a Sith cult, and it turns into this war against the Sith. But also at the same time, like two other different parties are also trying to resurrect the Sith. There's these like rich kids on this one planet who like are studying Sith artifacts, and like, okay, you know what? Let's just bring the Sith back. So these guys call themselves the Krath. They take over like their entire system, and they do their thing. There's this other guy called Exar Kun, who's another Jedi, who immediately finds out about the Sith and immediately is like, okay, I'm going to be a dark side Jedi now. He goes to Yavin. He meets Naga Sadow's ghost or holocron or what have you, and he becomes like a new Sith Lord. He meets up with the Krath. They form an alliance kind of thing. Meanwhile, Ulic Qel-Droma is like, okay, I got to beat these guys from the inside. So he goes to find the Krath and pretend to join up to them, at which point he does, in fact, follow the dark side and join up with the Krath. So it was a terrible decision, terrible idea. Ulic Qel-Droma is evil. He's like the right-hand man of Exar Kun. The Krath are now like the big army. They go find these guys called the Mandalorians. And the Mandalorians, I don't know if I have the energy to go into as much detail right now, but yeah, the Mandalorians basically are like the ancient enemy of the Jedi. They're like warrior race. You know who the Mandalorians are. The Mandalorian from the show The Mandalorian is unfortunately not canon to Legends, so I'm not going to talk about him. But I love the Mandalorians. They're very important, and they keep being important. Okay, I'm gonna make it brisk now. So there's a big war between Exar Kun's Sith and the Jedi. The Jedi win in the end. Exar Kun dies. Ulic Qel-Droma doesn't die, but he loses his Force powers, and eventually he redeems himself before sacrificing himself and dying. There's also the main character basically of this saga, like the main good character is Nomi Sunrider. I thought I'd mention her. She's like the main good guy. She and Ulic kind of have a thing for a little bit, but it's not that important. Like a generation or so passes. People remember Exar Kun and stuff, but now the younger generation is no longer remembering the folly of falling to the dark side, as happens. The Mandalorians, who are all revved up from the whole Sith War thing, and they start just taking out all kinds of places around the galaxy. The Republic is like not doing anything about it. So this one dude, whose name we don't know, who will become known as the Revengist, or Revan for short, he goes out and sort of takes on the Mandalorian by himself. He starts up with this whole crusade against him. Eventually that pays off, and the Republic agrees to go to war with the Mandalorians, because the Mandalorians are fucking their shit up. Revan leads these armies, but as he's doing it, he and his apprentice, Malak, are going like more and more deeper into the dark side. They're following the exact same way that like Ulic Qel-Droma did. So yeah, they turn evil. They go out, they find Vitiate's empire, which is hiding in the shadows, and the Vitiate goes, you don't remember me, but you will go out and be my beachhead. You will lead the Sith army. So Revan and Malak show up with a big Sith army, obliterate the Republic, sort of take over as the leaders, and they're that for a while. Revan gets captured, he gets his memory wiped, and he thinks he's a Jedi again. He goes out and he is a good guy, and he beats Malak, and then everything seems good, and then the Sith come back, and they're even stronger, and they destroy the Jedi almost entirely, but then the Jedi come back, and they beat the Sith. And again, this whole time, the other Sith Empire, the Vitiates one, has been lurking in the background, doing their thing. And they're lurking. Fuck. The Vitiates Empire is lurking in the background, doing their own thing, planning for their time. Revan, who's now a big hero, he suddenly realized, oh shit, there's this whole other empire. I gotta go figure out that shit. So he takes his friend, Meetra Surik, who was the one who ultimately destroyed the Sith, the big Sith Empire. Not the Sith, the group of Sith that Revan led. So basically these two are the big heroes that defeated everyone. They go off to find the Sith Emperor. Meetra dies, I think, and Revan gets like captured and like held in stasis for like hundreds of years. So he's out of the picture. And they're the only ones who knew about this other Sith Empire. So the Sith Empire gets to just do its own thing, while the Republic is as it does, sliding into complacency again. So we're like a few hundred years after that, and you have a descendant of Revan called Satil Shah, and she's in charge of the Jedi now. All right, I'm gonna speed things up because my head is starting to really hurt. Eventually, the Sith Empire attacks. Everything changes. They take over like half the galaxy, and then there's a halt to conflicts. They just have a big Cold War for a while. Satil Shah takes over the Jedi. She's like the leader of it now. And then the Cold War gets hot, and there's a new civil war. These two parties fighting each other, lashing each other back and forth. This is where it's an MMO at this point, so you can play as either side. But the general gist of it is that eventually a Jedi kills the Sith Emperor. And it's like, woo, we did it. Except all of a sudden, this other empire that we've never heard of before crashes into him. It's called the Eternal Empire. It wrecks everyone's shit, takes over everything. And turns out that the Eternal Empire is led by the exact same guy who was the Sith Emperor. He's just hopped into a different body, and he's been like building this secondary empire in secret, just in case he dies in his original body, or not his original. He's been hopping from body to body over like millennia at this point. He finally gets defeated for good, and the Eternal Empire at some point is dismantled, and we kind of go back to the status quo of there being the Jedi and the Republic, and the Sith sort of dwindle into nothing. Until, this is about 2,000 years before the Battle of Yavin, this dude, Fanius, who's a Jedi Knight, decides, I'm gonna rebuild the Sith. And he does, and he like builds up this new Sith Empire, which they call themselves the New Sith. I don't know whether they're related to the old Sith at all, or if they're just like a cosplay group. So I don't know if this counts as another schism. I don't think it's officially counted as one. But the new Sith show up, and they start the new Sith Wars, and this lasts for the next 1,000 years. And it's mostly just them going back and forth. The Sith splinter into different groups and start fighting each other. The Jedi are kind of like scattered to the wind. The Republic's a little bit dead. It's not dead, but it's hanging by a thread. And this is what goes on for the next 1,000 years. Just like multiple different Sith groups rising and falling, and the Jedi are just trying their best to be scrappy underdogs and beat them up. And eventually what happens, it all coalesces at the end. Like all the Sith warlords are kind of like dying out. And this dude, Scare Khan, he sounds like the tiger from the Jungle Book, but he's not. He shows up, and he's a Jedi, but he's like, I'm a Sith now. And he's like, I know how to unify the Sith. We have to treat each other as equals. We have to be nice to each other and treat each other as equals and be a big happy brotherhood. And they're called the Brotherhood of Darkness. And this actually works for a while. They actually like start taking ground back. At this point, there's like the Brotherhood of Darkness. Not the Brotherhood. Did I call it the Brotherhood of Evil? They're the Brotherhood of Darkness. And then, in response, the Jedi create the Army of Light. Oh boy! All right, I'm gonna wrap this up real quick. So, I'm just gonna get to how we get to Episode 1, because if I go any further, I might puke. So we got the Brotherhood of Darkness versus the Army of Light, and they are like setting up their big climactic battle at this planet called Ruusan. Ruusan. And at this point, this young guy is sort of rising through the ranks of the Brotherhood of Darkness. His name is Bane, Darth Bane, which is at this point the whole Darth title is like this ancient thing that not many people are using at this point. But Bane has been like in the library looking at a lot of holocrons from like Darth Revan and like Darth. I don't know. Cuck. Darth idiot face. And Darth Bane is now like, this brotherhood thing is not the way forward. This is not how you do this shit. The way you have to do it is you have to have only 2 Sith at a time. Because by their very nature, the Sith are all like really ambitious and they want to kill each other. They want to accumulate as much power as possible. So you have to have as little Sith as possible, or else they'll start, fucking murdering each other. So you have 2 Sith, 1 apprentice, 1 master. The idea is the apprentice will either fail, or he'll one day surpass his master. So this is what Bane thinks is the way to go. But he's like a low-ranking member of the Brotherhood at the moment, so he can't do anything with it. But what he can do is he finds this like old technique called the Thought Bomb, and he gives it to Scare Khan. He's like, hey, check this out. This is how you beat the Jedi. And then he takes off. He's gone. The big battle at Ruusan is happening, and Khan's like, well, I gotta beat the Jedi. So he uses his Thought Bomb, and what it does is it just like gets really big and just destroys everyone on the planet. All the Jedi, all the Sith, that's the entire Brotherhood of Darkness gone. And it's just Bane left. And the Jedi are still around, because the Jedi were bigger to begin with. But, Bane goes back to Ruusan. He finds like 1 survivor, who's this like Force-sensitive little girl called Zannah. He takes her under his wing. She becomes his apprentice. And he establishes the rule of 2, and that's going to happen. It's going to keep going. The rule of two. The thing about the rule of two is that none of the people actually respect it whatsoever. They're always taking other apprentices. The apprentices are taking apprentices. They don't respect it at all. And that's the way it is for the next 1,000 years. The Republic is doing fine, doing great. Eventually we get to the point where the Sith Master at this point is called Plagueis. And he's got an apprentice called Sidious, a.k.a. Sheev Palpatine. Now, Sheev is not, the name is not canon to Legends, but I'm going to call him that anyway because I like it. And Palpatine gets himself involved in politics so he can influence the galaxy and create a situation that would allow him to become Emperor. Plagueis is like a big money guy, so he can fund everything. He's like a banker. So he's a big money guy. He's also like a scientist, and he's messing around with the midichlorians, seeing if he can like create some. He's trying to create like an evil life with them, but it doesn't work. And the midichlorians like say fuck that, and then instead of creating an evil life, they go and they impregnate a random lady called Shmi Skywalker. She has a kid named Anakin Skywalker. Anakin Skywalker. That's our main character for the first half of the movies. I'm also going to get us to... we've got the Jedi. They're doing their thing. You've got Yoda. He's this old-ass guy. He has an apprentice called Dooku. And Dooku... Oh, okay. Ugh. Dooku has an apprentice called Qui-Gon. Qui-Gon's got an apprentice called Obi-Wan. And that's the way... Fuck. Oh, this hurts. That's the way that we start off Star Wars. And I'm gonna die. See you later, folks. Ugh.